Good evening, students.
Good evening.
Good evening, teacher.
Okay, welcome to the encounter.
Good evening, Professor Diana.
Good evening, Christian. How are you doing with your babies?
Oh well, it's been a dream come true. Perfect. Now we're able to sleep
Great.
like what, 5 hours now? The first months were complicated. We slept like 2 hours. But now we made it.
But you're
We
happy.
survived. We survived.
Yeah. Well, nice.
Thank you,
Okay.
Professor.
Let's see. We have Andres Felipe, Maria Fernanda, Lina.
I'm
Luis.
here. Good evening for
Good evening.
everybody.
And we have
Hi, Maria
Giovanni,
Fernanda and everybody.
Hello.
Fernando Campo. Okay, good. So let's start. Tonight, we're going to review the information that you have been studying for the last 2 weeks. Through the virtual encounter, through the meeting, I will ask you some questions, several questions, so I will invite you to participate by answering at least one question. So you know that there is a button that says raise your hand, so I will ask you to please use it each time you want to answer a question. Okay, so we will start by mentioning the words that are related to social linguistics and that you studied in during the first week.
Okay.
Yes, who remembers?
I do. Oh, okay.
Christian, please.
I think one of them was code.
Yes.
All right. Code. Power.
Right.
Register.
Yes.
Vibration. Vibration.
Vibration?
Yeah.
No.
That was one of them, no?
Variant. No. Variant.
Yeah, that's the one. Variant. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like the different structures. Yeah. What else?
Identities.
Yes.
Identities. That's another one. Yeah.
Power. Yeah.
Exactly.
Power is already there.
Society. Society is another term.
Exactly.
Culture, was it? Culture, I think.
Culture too.
Culture. And the warfare hypothesis.
Warfare hypothesis, yeah.
Andres?
Worfian hypothesis. Worfian.
Yeah. Working hypothesis.
And sociolinguistics itself.
Sociolinguistics. Okay, good. So now I would like you to think about the way you greet people. The words that you use when you want to greet your friends, your family members, your teachers, your acquaintances. Who wants
The
to?
words that we use just to greet people?
Yes. So what words do you use?
Well, to greet friends
in the case
is
of
very okay. Go ahead, Andres. Sorry.
well, in the case of friends and family, well, usually friends is going to be you're going to use very informal words. Yeah. So if you're going to say like greet them, you're probably going to say like hi or what's up or have you been or I don't know something.
What's new?
Yeah, what's up? Whatever.
How's your
in
mama?
the case of family, I think it also depends. Because when it's like your closest family, like your wife or your parents or your sons or daughters, you're probably going to also be very, very, very informal and even tender. Like you will probably say um, like
Or
pet
nicknames.
name, like honey or
Dear.
Darling.
things, dear, darling, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
But also maybe if it's the family that is like your uncle that is not very close, or your granddad or something that is like respect them more, maybe we'll use other type of language, I think. In the case of the colleagues, well, it kind of depends, but I guess what you're trying to ask is like in an academic or in a formal environment, in a professional environment, and probably you're going to be a lot more formal. You're going to say good morning. You probably call them in our environment like Mr. or by the first name, but not necessarily a nickname unless they are very close to you. And the same goes to teachers. And you're going to be very respectful and formal because
Okay.
you see them like kind of an authority, or in some cases like you're equal, but I mean it's an academic environment, so it's going to be formal. And in case of the acquaintances, I guess it means like people who are not that close to us. So maybe it will depend on the type of acquaintance it is, but also probably if we're meeting people that are not we're not in contact with them every day, we could be like semi-formal. I will guess that we will have maybe it's not going to be like in the case of a professional environment, but probably if they are not that close to you, you're not going to be like super close and super tender and whatever, because probably the relationship, if they are not so close to you, is not going to be in that point in which you can tell them like pet names or nicknames, or be like very informal like you would be with your friends.
All right. Thank you, Andres. So this is related to our course because social linguistics studies those rules that we have in our mind and in societies in order to communicate with other people. So we use language that can be verbal, non-verbal, or signs. Um, so we need to take into account those rules that we have in society regarding how close we are to people, regarding
Yeah.
the situation that we where we are, the place where we are. So those social rules have influenced the language that we use to communicate.
Especially, yes, professor, especially in the writing process too. For example, now I'm doing a little task at school where kids are writing first an email to a close friend and a letter where they bought something, but it's not what they liked, so they have to return it. So in that case, it's formal. And when they write the message, it's informal. So they use this kind of vocabulary to a friend and this letter to this specific, let's say, company. So it's been pretty interesting. And when I was reading these articles, it got like there. It was pretty cool.
Exactly. So we need to tell our students or make them aware of those differences so that they really know how to communicate in different situations with different people. So
Hmm.
also we can use different words to communicate with friends depending on the place where we are. If we are in a formal situation or in a, let's say, a wedding or a meeting with let's say our boss, so and we are not that close to that person, so we are going
Oh
to
yeah.
different ways to greet, right? Usually men can use like words that are kind of rude. Women would say that, but for men it's okay. If they would do that if they are in a situation in which they feel comfortable doing that. But if they move to other place, maybe they won't use the same words.
It's like a student in school among themselves. Hey, 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 and they use these rude words among themselves. But when you talk to a teacher, it's very formal.
Right. So it depends on with the person you are uh,
Exactly.
sharing the moment. So all those rules are part of the studies of social linguistics. Good. Here we have other questions. So the person who wants to answer, please raise the hand. Okay, Andres.
Yeah, I was waiting. So the first question says, are there ways of reading either that you use or that you do not use that index membership in particular groups? And I guess that they are, meaning you could talk about like one thing that comes to mind is, for example, those types of groups that would have special types of reading. So yeah, like city cultures or specific cultures that have like specific ways of greeting that maybe are not general for the rest of society. But also you could think, for example, on like on ages. Yeah, so some of the expressions that maybe our parents used to use, maybe for us are kind of weird. And when we use different ways of greeting or speaking to each other, being younger, they were seeing like very young and very different. And nowadays you listen to students or to young kids greet themselves or say some expressions between themselves that you actually sometimes don't even understand what they are trying to say or what they refer to, because they just, it's something that is internal, given the things that they like, the music or the things that they watch, or I don't know, whatever. And maybe you're not in touch with those things, so so that makes like you're from a different generation, so it makes you feel different. That's one thing. And the other thing is also in the professional environment, probably like there are some terms, and I know that the question has to do with reading, but in general, I think that in a professional environment, there are some terms or some ways of speaking that pertain to specific groups. So it's not the same. I mean, if people are speaking between doctors, they probably have some expressions and things that they understand when they are talking, and you're listening to them and you just don't understand. And it happens a lot in schools. When you hear the math people speak, they start saying hyperbole or whatever, and you're like, no idea what they're talking about. And probably in our case that we talk about language acquisition and other types of things, they are the ones who don't have it as clear, because they just, it's not like their area of expertise. So I do think that the language and the ways that we speak can make us, or it's an index of the type of social groups that we pertain to.
Exactly. Any of you could think about a word that you have heard from teenagers, like a new one they have. So teenagers usually create new words, so that, as
They
Andres
have,
explained.
yeah, they have their own dialect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
weird.
remember listening to one and I was totally surprised, but at this moment I cannot recall the word. But it was like totally weird, like what? But no, I don't remember what it was.
Okay. Anybody?
I'm thinking about the word dude. Like teenagers use it a lot. What's up, dude? Like, for example.
Yeah.
And now I was thinking of this the WhatsApp message. Like they are using like short expressions or short words or a kind of language that is unique for that kind of communication. Is that, could we consider that kind of language in this social linguistics?
Yes, sure. So those abbreviations, those new words,
Exactly.
teenagers create.
Maybe
I
an
have
example
heard.
that comes to mind is nowadays there are some kids that like boys that tell to each other like papi. It's so funny. It's like papi.
Yeah.
I have heard
Oh,
when girls they like to call like befas, like hi befa or befo, like mean like best friends or something like that, like BFF. They are usually having this word, like I heard like every day that I use a lot befa and befo. I know.
That's the best fat friend, BFF.
Yes, but they use the word is befo or befa. Like I mean, like they're giving their significance in Spanish for this expression in English.
Okay.
But that actually depends too, Professor, if the student has traveled abroad and they come with these new expressions. I have a kid that he came this year for fourth grade and he uses, hey, homie, what's up? All these words that are not like very particular for our like country. He uses homie a lot, homie, like a homeboy.
Yeah, but it also I think it depends like on what's trending. So they see things or they listen to things in music or whatever, and they talk to each like some time ago they say like melo. I don't know. I still don't know what it is. Like estas melos, things like that. I haven't understood what they.
That means
That's pretty easy.
nice.
Like you are fine. Like you are
Yeah,
brilliant.
something like
Like
that. Yeah,
everything
whatever.
does
Or
well in
more
your
than
life.
not understanding what it is, I don't have any idea where they took it from. But whatever.
I
So
know that one because I have a cousin. He's like 20 in his 20s, so he used that and he got it from a song
yeah,
and from
well,
the region he
The,
belongs to. So
She's
what
from
up?
here, Valle del Cauca.
exactly, George.
The word sugar daddy too. I have never heard that word until I heard my colleague sugar daddy. I don't know what it is.
That's also
Oh,
from
that's another one that is like the person. I mean, the sugar daddy is for the man, and they are this kind of guys or mature guys that it can help these young people with money and gadgets and whatever they want, just like for. I mean, I think it's like a kind of prostitution because they are
Are you?
buying like
Are you sure?
businesses with
They
money.
call me that way at work. So
so
that
I don't
bothers
think
me.
it is.
I know because that's the word right now, like since last year, because I know that a lot of reggaetoneros or that people are
Mhm.
using these words, and these young people are using a lot, and they are listening a lot of reggaeton and those artists. So right now, the word sugar daddy, and also the men are using the expression sugar mommy because they also want a sugar mommy too. So these words is like are like this for this kind of situation, or I don't know.
So the people who use those words belong to a certain community, right? So
Yes.
usually they are young people who listen to reggaeton in those cases of the last words that we mentioned, or they just create a new one, or it depends, as some of you mentioned, if they had traveled, they got some words from other countries and they got their own abbreviations.
If you travel to Medellin, there's one that's very common. That is hola parcero.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one.
Hmm.
I think the dog is participating too.
And
Sorry.
that's one that is being used abroad. So a friend told me that when he traveled last December, people asked him if he was from Colombia, so that he was a
Okay,
parcero.
a
So that
parcero.
is, yeah. So people are associating the word parcero with a Colombian person,
with
not
the
with a
with the
person from
Colombian.
Antioquia. Uh-huh.
Imagine. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So okay. So this is also an example of how we can um, associate words with communities. And this is also related a little bit with identities, right? So to identify, uh, for example, as a person from you identify a person as somebody from Antioquia if the person uses the word parcero because it's usually is used in that region.
Exactly.
Good. Let's move to the next one, which is the relationship between language and culture. So we have some words that are very difficult to translate into English or vice versa because they are created in the culture or by the people who belong to a specific culture, like no dar papaya. That is, we cannot say that literally, or there is not an equal. Let's say there are no words that express that this is a funny expression, but that also means be careful, right? So on the right we have some ways to try to communicate the idea, but not the whole idea of this
Oh yeah.
expression can be translated. So we have don't get caught with your pants down, don't put yourself in a position where people can easily take advantage of, don't make yourself an easy target, but it's not that easy to translate. Can you think about any other that is difficult to translate from English to Spanish or from Spanish into English?
Like a proverb too,
Yeah, proverbs are.
maybe.
Uh-huh.
¿Cómo es? No se le mide el diente. I don't know how.
A caballo
But there is
regalado.
one for that.
Ese,
But there is
that
for
one,
that.
teacher. Un cabello regalado no se le ven los dientes, something like
No
that.
But
se
there
le
is
mide.
one in English for that.
Uh-huh. It's kind of similar.
Yes.
Teacher, you can say, you can judge a book by his cover.
Will you repeat, please?
You can't judge a book by his cover.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's.
But that's the same.
Las
But that's
apariencias
not the
engañan.
same.
No, yeah,
it's
it's
not
different.
the same. What is a similar expression in Spanish?
Las apariencias engañan.
Oh, okay. Do you remember this one? Like, hablando del rey de Roma?
Talking about the devil and he's sure to appear.
Yes, speaking of evil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is that maybe they have similar expressions that mean the same, but if you translate it like just as it is, it doesn't make sense. Like, for example, when you say camello, like when you say esto es un camello, or like camello meaning something difficult, or even camello meaning like a job. So if you say it in English, like this is a camel, it's going to be like, doesn't make sense.
Do you know if the word rebusque has a translator for in English? El rebusque. That most of the Colombian people use that word.
Mm-hmm. For example, that one.
That one, it could be one, yes.
That's a complicated
That's a good one because it's part of what happens in our culture regarding how to get money. And we don't see in other countries like people doing like all the things that we see in our country in order to try to find out money, to get money.
Yeah.
So it's not that easy. Or you will have to explain what it means, but you don't get a word that has the same load. All what the word wants to communicate is not found in other word in English.
Let's see.
So in social linguistics, culture is not related with the idea of arts, of literature and theater and music, but on what happens in society that is expressed through language, as what we are, as in the examples that we are reviewing here. Okay, let's see identity or identities. Okay, who wants to answer this question?
I think I can. Okay, somebody else or
Go.
okay. I think the teacher is trying to show like respect among themselves. Well, I think a person shows identity through many ways. The way he speaks, the way he dresses, the way he talks, right? So if I think the teacher's trying to be very formal, like and showing like specific rules. I think that's what she's trying to do there. No
Okay, but if this is an English class, what is the teacher trying to?
behavior, maybe.
I think she's trying to show
I think.
like
Excuse me, Andres. Can I talk?
yeah, of
Uh,
course.
Thank you.
Hold on a second.
Thank
Maria raised. So Maria.
Yeah, I think
Yes, me.
the teacher wants their students to speak English, so they identify as English students, as a members of an English class. Is that
No.
what identity means?
Yeah.
I think.
Yes. And Maria.
Yes, I was going to mention something similar. Of course, her aim in the class and for students is for them to use the language and recalling the task that we did last unit. One of the terms that they mentioned was identity, and it was like how through social linguistics how language was built or built the speaker's identity. And they mentioned that it was mainly constructed through discourse or social behavior. So I guess it's just the example that the teacher sets in the classroom, taking the students to use only the language, the target language, which in this case would be English.
Exactly. So she wants students to identify as people who can communicate in English in this case. But the students, what are the students? What is the position of the students? How are they positioning themselves? Maria?
Well, I guess maybe from what I see from the picture, since they are translating or just answering in Spanish, maybe they don't have yet the habit of using the target language. So I guess it may be just the first days of class, or maybe just getting to know their new teacher, because she's like trying to implement this habit in them, I would think. So it would depend on her. If she accepts that Spanish from the kids, then they're gonna keep on using their Spanish. If she lets them know that that's not acceptable, for example, depending on whatever her purpose is, the purpose that she's got in her class, then they would know how to respond with time, I guess.
Okay, that's a possibility. What if the students are bilingual because they have their parents speak English?
Speaking English or speaking
Yes,
Spanish?
their parents, the students' parents speak English, so they know how to communicate in English, but they are in an English class in a Spanish-speaking country. So if the students do that, I mean, the students answer in Spanish, what are they? How are they positioning themselves?
Their mother tongue is like taking a priority there, or right? You mentioned that they come from a Spanish speaking family. No, I'm sorry, from an English speaking family, but they are in a Spanish school.
Exactly. Yes, like let's suppose that they are in Colombia, but those kids, the parents of those kids speak English because they are native speakers, the parents. But they are in Colombia, so they are in an English class. However, they answer using Spanish in the class.
Maybe they are in that case, maybe they are just trying to be disruptive a little bit. is one option, or the option is they are trying to fit in like to the rest of the group that is Spanish speaking. So maybe even though they have the English, their native tongue is English, they're trying to do so. Or another option is that they are just learning Spanish, so they are kind of trying to use their target language that in their case is not English but Spanish.
Okay, all those are possibilities. If well, if they are bilingual because in at their homes their parents speak English and they know how to speak Spanish too, they want to position themselves as non-bilingual in class, and it can be because of different reasons. So this is something that can be studied by linguists to find out why students don't want to communicate in English in class if they know how to do it. What is behind that?
Okay, but that, well, I have lived that behavior before with some friends that they are like me, like they are from USA and they come here like for vacation or something, and I try to speak in English to make their life easier, but they don't want to. They want to use their Spanish or something like that, and they are like always okay. They're trying to use their Spanish, and I'm trying to use my English, but we are always like that in that way. I think it's like the same that they are trying to do, like use their Spanish because they know that the rest of the group are like native from here and they speak Spanish, so they trying to fit in or something like that.
Yeah, that's possible. So many reasons might vary. A possibility is that they don't want others in the class that don't speak English feel uncomfortable and they want to fit in the group. They don't want other people, they just don't care about having others and identify them as bilingual. They just know how to do it and they will use it when they need it, but they are not interested in having others all the time identify them as bilingual, or they just don't want to be to cooperate with the teacher because maybe they don't like the teacher. So there might be different reasons, and it could be a topic for research I mean, talking about a context as the one that I explained. uh, Children that are bilingual, they are in an English class in Colombia, but they just don't want to participate in English.
Hmm.
Okay, something similar happened in a school. In a school in close to Bogota. Those students are teenagers. They are bilingual. And I would like you to watch the first 5 minutes of a video and try to answer these questions. Right? So who does most of the talking? What kinds of questions are posed? What kinds of answers are facilitated? How did the teacher talk to his students? What was his tone of voice? Did he use directives, questions, praises, criticisms? How do you think his words position his students as readers and writers? How do you think his students position him as a teacher? How did he position himself as a teacher? How might these positionings be shaped by how he was taught, by the kind of school he attended, by his race, class, gender, or sexuality? What were the students doing? If the students were engaged in the lesson, how did the students communicate with each other? How did the students position each other as readers and writers? What are the strengths? What will you do differently? So I'm going to share with you the link of the video. I just want you to watch the first 5 minutes. As I told you, the school is close to Bogota. The students are bilingual because their parents speak English at home and they are teenagers, so they know how to speak English. And the teacher is an American person, and he was trying to teach students how to understand a reading. So okay, this is the link. So I will talk to you again in 5 minutes. Just watch the first 5 minutes of that video.
Could you place the questions again, please?
Yes, I will display them on the screen.
Thank you.
Hola, Kitian, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te ha ido?
Okay, so since you were asked only to watch the first 5 minutes, I would like you guys to try to answer the question. So maybe somebody who has not participated yet, Giovanni or Lina or John, Paola. Luis, okay.
Okay, teacher. To the first question, I think the teacher was the person that uh, talked the most, you know. I think the teacher used the same tone of voice and he was very static. And the words that he was explaining, he was explaining were like slangs or words that the meanings are different than the translation, you know.
Uh-huh. And what type of questions did he ask?
It was a very teacher-centered class, right?
Mm-hmm. And how did he position his students as readers? I mean, according to the type of questions he asked, what do you think he considered his students were able or not able to do regarding understanding the reading?
Teacher, good evening.
Hello, John.
How's it going? Okay, it's a pleasure to stay here one more time. Teacher, according to I was watching a video, I think that first of all, the place that he was teaching was not available because you were hearing a dog barking and a lot of sound. He was speaking so slow. Um, um, the information that he was talking about wasn't clear for me. Um, what it wasn't the best play of the situation to explain the class for me. I think so, teacher. I don't think so. It was a very good way to teach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about the questions that he asked? So if these students, because they were really, they were bilingual, they came from families where their parents talk in English because they were American, so they were bilingual. Why do you think
Teacher?
those students were not able to answer the teacher's questions, and based on the questions that the teacher asked, what do you think the teacher thought about students' abilities to understand?
Teacher?
Yes,
It's Lina.
Lina.
Good evening, teacher.
Good evening.
Teacher, I think that if the students speak English, maybe the question that the teacher should do is more related to a conversation, no? To try to introduce a conversation and not just and not to ask about the meaning of the words and if the word is a verb or if the word is a noun. I think that it is a little confused for them. And trying to ask the question that we are doing. I think that the teacher thought that the students don't speak English because the students don't say don't speak a lot. Or I think that it depends of the teacher should do another methodology or should choose another kind of exercise because I think that it's not as clear for them.
Okay, so the teacher thinks the students need to understand the linguistic part, right? What are nouns, what are adjectives in order to understand the reading. And as you mentioned, he doesn't ask students questions regarding the content or the opinions of students, but just specific words, right? So that's what he thinks. Students need to learn the way or a list of words to identify nouns, verbs, adjectives. So he maybe wants to increase students' vocabulary, but that's it. Those are the type of questions he asks. And then we have Maria Fernanda. You raise your hand.
But I think Andres raised it first.
Okay, Andres.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I think that I don't know. I didn't sense that he was very. I mean, he did mention noun or as a verb or whatever, but I think that the expressions that they were using weren't necessarily very common expressions, like to dwindle and to. There are expressions that are not that common. So maybe I guess trying to get in his mind, what he was trying to do is like to give them like the vocabulary, the meaning of those expressions, and to have them understand more than if they are nouns or verbs, more what they mean, because maybe he thought that would help them. In the question it says, how did he position the students as readers and writers? Maybe he thought that they needed the specific vocabulary, even being English speakers. Maybe he thought there were specific expressions that they needed to know in order to understand the text, maybe. And to answer the questions of him as a teacher, you kind of see when they turn the camera to film like the students, you kind of see that they are not like that invested and they're not taking the teachers that seriously. So you can feel that, although I do agree with who said that the environment maybe is not the most comfortable for a class, like with noise, and the classroom doesn't seem like very nice either. I also think that maybe there's not a great connection between the student and the teacher, so the students kind of don't see him as yeah, don't feel connected to him, so therefore they are not that invested. So you see that they participate very little. And it's funny because if they are English speakers, you would think that even if they don't know expressions, it would be easy for them to interact with the teacher and like to ask him questions or whatever, but they don't do it. So it feels like he doesn't have like a great connection to the kids.
Good. Maria Fernanda and then Fernando.
Yes. Well, it was difficult to understand because of the sound. It was not that clear. But though, like the first thing that came to my mind while watching the video was, well, first of all, in contrast to what Andres just mentioned, that maybe he was presenting this list of new vocabulary. I don't think he was, because I think I heard him asking, like, what is this, or what does this mean? So he was assuming the students would know already. But the thing is that since they are not answering or participating in his class, that just gives me the idea that of course they don't know. So it's like the teacher is not giving any previous scaffolding for the students to have like appropriate foundations for them to answer, first of all. And second, I'm sorry, there's no like an active participation. So maybe it's because they just don't know. And actually at the end, I think the teacher says, like, I thought you would know all this, or I think you knew all this. That's what I think I heard. And then how is that going to make them feel? Well, that they're ignorant, that they are not capable of doing or fulfilling the activity. And I guess it's just also the way he's teaching, the way he's presenting or handling the activity, of course, is not the most appropriate, and there's no motivation from the students. And maybe it's just because of that he's just got a list of words of new vocabulary. I would say it's new because otherwise they would have participated in the class. And it's just like he's not presenting the vocabulary properly. He's just asking, what does this mean? What does this mean? Well, hello, I don't know this vocabulary. So how do you expect me to answer what that is? I have no idea. That's why they're quiet.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Good. And Fernando?
Yeah, thanks. Well, the first thing that came to my mind, apart from the question you are asking us, I mean, the question, what kind of questions he's doing, what kind of words he's using, how is he doing the class or whatever. The first thing that came to my mind is that this teacher, if we can call this man a teacher, this man he looks like if he's sick or something. When I was talking to this person, I thought he was sick. I thought he was sad. I thought he was kind of he had a headache or something. I thought he was some guy that picked them up in the street and they come in and give us class, an English class. And that's what I thought. That was my first thought. Because of his tone, because of his energy, because of his lack of motivation. Those were the things that came to my mind. I couldn't think about what kind of question he's doing or what sort of way he's doing the class. Like it was pretty sad actually, seeing this man teaching this class. I thought maybe he was kind of shy, and since there was someone recording the class, he didn't feel like he was he was like shy. He was shy doing the class. I didn't understand really the way he was doing the class.
Okay.
So I was kind of impressed. I was kind of
It's
shocked.
true that we communicate through gestures, through nonverbal language. And so his attitude is not motivating students, right? And the type of questions he's asking are not motivating, as some of you mentioned, to start a conversation with students that are able to communicate in English. And so he's positioning his students as Andres mentioned, as people who need the meaning of a specific words in order to understand the reading. Um, and just the questions that he chose for the class are not appropriate to work to work or to help students to develop their reading skills. He's just working on vocabulary.
Exactly. And if he's got like very good students in class, I would approach those kids differently. I don't know. For me, it was a very boring class. Poor kids. I don't know.
Yeah, as we mentioned, gestures, the tone of voice, his posture, all that communicates. And he was not showing that he was like comfortable or
Exactly.
he wanted to teach the class.
So he didn't look like a teacher actually. I was quite shocked. I was quite shocked. Is that real? Is that a real teacher?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
that's part of that was part of a research to find
Uh-huh.
out the reason why those students didn't speak in class, in his English class, if they had the linguistic knowledge, if they spoke English.
Now I couldn't believe that these students are bilingual because they didn't open their mouth. I mean, they could also participate or do something like break the the boringness. I don't know. Those students were like sleeping in that class.
They were not interested in the topic of the reading.
Exactly.
Exactly. Wow.
And then the question that the teacher asked
Terrible.
were not helpful to start a conversation. So starting with the topic,
Uh-huh.
if you read something that you don't like and you're not interested in, then you won't be willing to participate. You won't like to say anything.
Yeah, but any of them. I mean, that's a big crisis in that class.
Yeah, that was difficult for that teacher. He didn't actually know how to teach.
Exactly.
Okay, and then this is important because if we analyze the words that we use in class, the questions that we ask, we can find out if we are being if we are treating our students in an equal way, or if we are using words that that help students to feel comfortable or uncomfortable in class. Yes, if we are giving equal opportunities in class, or if we just ask students who always participate and we just praise them, and then we don't do anything with the other students that are or shy or quiet. Yes, we need to, it's important that we analyze the language that we use in class, the questions that we ask, the students we talk more frequently to, in order to find out if we are giving equal opportunities to all the students in the class, and if the words that we are using are helping all the students to learn, or just a group of them.
Teacher?
Sorry, I was thinking about the psychology that a teacher has to have
Yeah.
respect with their students, because it depends how your student, depends how he is or she is, you gonna tell her or tell him this way, this or this other word, or the kind of expression you may use or not, right? So I just want to add that the psychology aspect of our class of your students. Just that.
But can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have to do like I mean, like when you start a course or something, you don't have to do a test with the students, or you have to try to detect all these kind of students, so you can now plan your classes, and now you know how you can work with those students, like since the very first day. Is
Now,
something like we have to do. I mean,
no, well, actually, we don't, if we don't know our students for previous courses, we don't know how to deal with them if they are shy, or we need to identify those shy students, those who like to be corrected in a certain way, others that prefer that you do a different exercise, others that are more visual, etc. So we just know how to deal with your students when you have been teaching several classes with the same group.
okay,
Teacher,
okay.
can I say something?
Yes.
Okay, teacher, what you say is true. And I really want to tell you that sometimes you can find different students, or maybe you can say shy person, but maybe they are not shy. Sometimes they are not sure, or maybe they have some doubt about the topic and they prefer not to talk, I think. Maybe as a teacher, it's important to create a very nice environment where everybody can participate and can talk free. It's very important that any of the students make fun of the other people, that when they make some mistake, and the other people sometimes they make fun of him, for example. And sometimes some students prefer not to talk in class, or maybe they prefer not to participate because they are afraid of making mistakes, I think. But if the teacher maybe create different activities where all the students can talk, or maybe can participate, it's different. I think, well, the more important when you are teaching English is the motivate all the students to participate in class. To have a lot of vocabulary is important, because you can understand what the teacher say, so you have the right answer to the question.
Okay. Yes, it's important to identify what is going on with all the students in the class. If we have some students that are silent, that don't speak much, so we need to find out a way to see if the student understood, if he knows the answer, if he's if it's a lack of confidence, or if he's shy, or if he doesn't understand. That we need to to deal with all of them. So it's
But
not easy, but that's what we have to do.
but the thing is that that is just like a process. I mean, some whoever was asking the thing about an exam at the beginning, well, of course, yeah, you can have like a diagnostic exam to see like their level or something, or their knowledge on some of the things you're going to see during the year or whatever. But there are things such as what you're mentioning of how they behave, how they like to be treated, how they like to be asked or whatever, that you just learn on the way. And therefore we as teachers have to be like very present and always like paying attention and looking and observing, not only during classes but also outside the classes, and their how they engage with others, and how they play and all those sorts of things. And you actually start learning how students are, and can like adapt to each one of them. And also the other thing is that that comes with time. I mean, uh, as you get more experience and as you teach more and more and more, and you get better at teaching, you start identifying easily, not easily because some cases they are tough, but at least a little bit more easily, the way that like you are able to very quickly start identifying different kind of students, and being able like to adapt to them. You start doing it faster as as you get more experience, and as you start learning how to treat students, and those sorts of things. And also finally, it's very important that schools have processes, because sometimes there are things when there are special needs, or when there are some sort of special ways of learning. It's important that you receive like those types of reports or whatever, that you know, because there are sometimes there are not things that are only a thing of a way of being, but just, I mean, a way of being, a personality thing, but also a certain situation or issue that people may have, that kids may have.
Okay. Maria Fernanda and then Christian.
I just wanted to mention something directly to the about the teacher. Well, yeah, there may be different factors that may interfere in the way he's teaching. Just as Fernando mentioned, he may be sick, or maybe that's not the best job opportunity that he has had. Different things, but then also, you know how native speakers have like almost all the time open doors in Spanish speaking countries. Like it's very attractive to have native speakers in schools nowadays. So maybe they may, or he may not even have an education degree or teaching degree, but just due to the fact that he's native, he can get a job as a teacher. And that's, I remember the first in my interview at the job that I currently have, one of the questions in the interview was that, like, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something related to, I mean, being a native and being able to teach the language. You may know the language, but that does not mean that you may be able to transmit it. So yeah, different factors that may be interfering there.
Okay.
Well, teacher, I want to say something else.
John?
According to Maria Fernanda say, is that right? Because there are some person they know and they have the knowledge, but they had a problem when they want to transmit the knowledge to the students. And first of all, for me, I think that we as an English teacher, we need to create and motivate the student. The first thing, the most important thing at the classroom is motivate the students. When the student I motivate him, they can give a result of the process of learning. Another point is we need to know what are the characteristics of the students, because there are some students that learn with the repetitions, another video, listen to music, something like this. And we need to create English environment in order to help the student and transmit the knowledge.
Okay, thank you, John. And Christian?
Thank you, teacher. Well, talking about being fair and opportunities in class, where I work at, this year we lost 12 kids because they felt very lonely in class. They were never asked because teachers only asked the good ones. They left the low-level kids aside, and they felt very bad. They felt lonely, and we lost like 12 kids. So
Oh, what do you mean that you lost them? They quit school?
they quit. They went to another school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was afraid.
Yeah, and being a teacher, well, we all felt very bad because those kids were there since American Garden, since they were very tiny, small, and they were like now in fifth and sixth grade, and we lost those kids. And it's our fault. It's the teacher's fault, 100%.
It's not easy because teachers have many things in their minds at the time they teach the lesson, right? They need to be careful about the material, the structure of the lesson, see what is going on in the class with 20 or more students, try to find out if they like the topic, if they are doing what they are supposed to do, many things. So, but it's nice that you mentioned that. So, because it's very easy to think that everybody understands what you are teaching because 2 or 3 or 4 students in the class answer all the time, and you start the conversation with them, and you think everybody's learning.
And it's not teachers. It's not only being a teacher. You must be. I'm not saying to be a friend, but be close to them. If you see them crying, go talk to them. If they're sad, talk to them. There's a lot of things that happens in 45 minutes of a class. That's why a teacher has to be pending in everything that around, like what surrounds them. No,
Yeah.
it's not only to go. It's not only to go there. Okay, guys, today we're gonna see simple prayers and take out your notebooks. Okay, write down the date. No, that's not it. It's us as a teacher.
Exactly. It's not that. It's not just to know how to do it and follow the lesson plan, but as you mentioned, be close to the students, observe and see what is going on in the class, if the students are in a good mood, if something happened in the previous class, if they had a test in the next class and they are worried.
Or they fight with their friends.
Maybe if there are not good relationships among them. So some of them are afraid of speaking because there is a group of students that are not nice. They bully. They are bullers or something like that. So many things might happen in the class. Okay, so this is also connected to what we have to do. That's why we are discussing it here. That's why social linguistics is important for us. And well, finally, we're going to review what you studied last week, which is related to varieties and dialects and the difference among those words. So here we have that language have different elements. So we have that language, as we mentioned, is nonverbal, but also verbal language, and that there are some linguistic elements. So when we have varieties, for example, in Colombia, that we have different regions. So in those different regions, there are linguistic elements that help us to identify varieties. Which are those elements?
Expressions, maybe pronunciation, like
Accent,
accent or pronunciation, and expressions, specific like words or expressions that people may use.
And slangs too.
Vocabulary, exactly. So
What about?
accent?
Oh, okay, I was gonna say that. Okay.
Grammar, syntax, yes.
Those are the 3 ones, right? So we can say that some people in Colombia use specific words, and so we identify them as people from the coast or people from the south of the country or people from
Paisas.
Exactly. They have their accent and they have sometimes those expressions. But we will see an example of grammar and syntax in English. Here we have a situation in which a person that is buying something says thanks, and the person answers a su orden or sometimes a la orden. Are they correct, those ways to answer?
I had never heard the a su orden.
No,
It's
La
anybody?
very
orden, yes, but
popular.
a su
It's
orden, I
very
never.
popular from Venezuelan people used to answer a su
Mm,
orden and not a la orden.
exactly.
So it's correct.
Is that correct?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I would say they're correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. They are correct. It's just those are varieties of Spanish in this case. So we have also varieties in English regarding vocabulary. The ones that we study the most are the varieties between, or the differences between British and American. Here we have some examples: chips and French fries, rubber and eraser, cooker and stove, timetable and schedule, lorry and truck,
Lorry truck. We're
sweet
missing
and
one.
candy.
Lift, elevator.
Exactly, that's
Yes,
a very common
that's
one.
another.
Hmm.
And even in the same
Or
country, in the USA, they have different words. So Coke, Pop, and soda,
Oh
right?
yeah. Okay.
Depending on the part of the country they are. So linguists, what they do is to work with these type of maps. For example, when they want to identify differences in accents, so they are the ones who create these maps so that they identify accents. For example, in USA, the Western one, the Texan one,
Hmm.
the Appalachian one, etc.
the all.
We have also varieties in different countries that speak the same language. Regarding accent, regarding vocabulary, as we mentioned, the one about Venezuela and Colombia, that's a variety from two countries that speak the same language. But also we have differences in accents, right? Like those are the most common ones. But we also have some ones that are related to syntax and grammar. So the most common one is have got and have. One is more used in USA and the other is used in Great Britain.
British.
Exactly. So we have a different structure for asking questions. It
But
doesn't
but at but at the end it's the same thing.
exactly. It's the same thing and both are correct. Those are just varieties of the language. So we have here, for example, that linguists created this map of Great Britain that expresses different accents and varieties. So we have, for example, in the middle of Great Britain, we have the West Midland variety, the East Midland, the Broomy one, etc. And here we have, well, what is your understanding of the difference between dialect and variety after reading the chapter? What do linguists say that is key when they try to identify a dialect?
They said that it's usually usually see look at social identity and kind of they are usually they focus it on a specific region or a specific uh, social class or a specific race, or like there are some conditions that make dialect, but they have to do more than in linguistic differences. Many times they have to do with social identification and how people identify, and the language has to do, and the way they speak, excuse me, has a lot to do with the way that they behave and the community they are part of.
Very good. So they say varieties are okay. There is no one better than the other because if we analyze how the sentences are created, they have rules, linguistic rules. So they are okay. They are dialects because people want to feel identified with certain regions. So they use certain words and certain accent and certain structures. So the key when when linguistics try to identify varieties is to find out what are the sociopolitical ideologies that that are behind those varieties. And so they in the reading they mentioned that in China there are different dialects or varieties. They say they are the same. So they mention that people in China speak Cantonese, Hunanese, Taiwanese, Mandarin, Kaka, and others. Yes, but that people there just say they speak Chinese because they want to feel they belong to the same country. And they mention that, for example, people that speak Cantonese and Mandarin, they just say they speak the same language. But as you see in the way it is written, there is just one difference that is in the second sign, the second symbol. But in the way it is pronounced, that is the second line, is very different. Although it is very different the way it is pronounced, they say they speak the same language.
It's understood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's just because they want to feel they belong to the same country, that they are a unity, although the way they speak is very different. And then the really mentions the concept of power and solidarity. What do you remember about it?
Me, teacher, Lina.
Lina.
Teacher, I don't know how to put the hand in the computer. I saw that some classmate put a green hand, but I don't know how they.
So you click on participants, and then you get a little box, and then it says mute me or raise my hand or merge to meeting room. Did you see it?
Yes,
there you
thanks. Thanks a lot. Teacher, okay. About the question, I remember that the power has an influence in the language because it may be one social group or one society has a powerful or symbolic powerful it could influence the position of a language. It may be in the case of a social group, if there is a solidarity between them, the group can protect its can protect its language, but if the people doesn't if the people don't take care of the language, maybe a powerful group of people can take advantage of this, and so the language tend to disappear. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what the reading mentions. Very good. So we have small communities that speak their language, but if they don't protect it, then the power of the language that is spoken for the majority is going to
Take over.
make that the other language disappear. So we have that in the news. You've seen that, for example, in Colombia, you've seen people that are social communicators and work for Caracol or RCN. They need to change their accent if they are from the coast or from Antioquia, they need to change their accent to the accent of people from Bogota in order to work as a presenter of the news in one of those channels. Because the identification of the standard English is the one that is spoken in Bogota. Fernando?
Yeah. There was a phrase talking about power. There was a phrase in the readings that caught my attention. It was like a language is a dialect with an army and a navy. I like that phrase because it shows how powerful a language can be in contrast with a dialect, right? That's that concerning the power. A language is a dialect with an army and a navy.
Mm-hmm.
And concerning the solidarity, what our partner said regarding that solidarity of their speakers in order to preserve the language, to resist power, and also to look forward on independence. That's a major topic now, for example, in Spain about the Catalonia region, how they want to be independent, how the language is now is getting stronger, stronger than the national language than Spanish. So they are determined to get in independence from Spain.
Exactly. So they.
Yeah, that's a good topic to talk about. The power of language concerning the independence of a region. Right.
The example that you gave us is a good one for solidarity, right? In Catalonia. So
Well, half of the people they want to get independence. The other half don't. But you see how language gets people together to look for independence because they get an identity that is, they don't feel Spaniards. They feel Catalans. They're half of the people I'm talking about. But
sometimes,
in that example, you see how strong, how powerful is a language when all the people get together, speak the language, regret from the language they were imposed, as they say, and they look for independence. I mean, total independence, economical, social, political, complete independence.
mm-hmm. They want to feel they are different from people who belong to the other part of Spain, right?
Right. They feel different. Their identity is not from Spain. They don't feel Spaniards. They feel Catalans. So they want to get their own country with their own norms, with their own politicians, with their own economic and everything. But they have taken what is called an linguistic immersion, which means that the Spanish, the first language taught in Spain, is cornered, is taken away from when they are kids in the kindergarten. They talk to them in Catalan all the time. So this the first language, standard language, which is Spanish, right? It's been like corner, so they get their language, their Catalan is more powerful now in the population.
Okay.
So that's called an linguistic immersion, immersión lingüística. That's a really interesting phenomenon about linguistics.
It is.
About social linguistics.
Good. John, Jairo? Okay. Somebody else wanted to say something about power and solidarity?
Yes, yes, teacher. I was going to say something about experience that I had with language, and specifically with the accent. I used to work in a call center. In that time, there were a campaign that we used to, we had to call some people from Spain. And then I start to do my calls, and then at the very first time that they hear my accent, there, I am Latino or from Colombia, they're just hanging out the phone, or they say some nasty words to me. So what I had to do was change my accent and start to look some videos to learn to speak like them. and I start to sell a lot of things that I had to sell in that time. The other thing that it happened to me, it was that when I was in the USA as a student, most of the people that I get to know, they always told me something like, okay, with that accent, you can do what you want. If you say something like you're an international student, everybody's gonna help you and everybody's gonna like be really kind with you. And I was like, really? And I started to use it, yes, it worked. Just because the accent or something that was that influenced some people to be nice with me or help me in some stuff. Yeah.
So it depends on the place where you are, the people you are surrounded by.
Yes, it was. Well, I mean, it was. I was in college in studying over there, and it was a little bit time, to start to speak because I was the only Colombian over there, and the other guys were from Europe, from Japan, and I was the only Latino. So I was a little bit shy of that, and then I started to speak with them, and they start to know me a little bit better, and they always told me every time that I got to know somebody else, like, your accent, and they were like talking about the accent, and it's something that right now we're talking about, and it took me to that place, to that memories.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for telling us that. Well, so this shows us that it is closely related. Power is closely related also with identities. So, how do you want to feel identify with what community, with what country, with what region? So, the words that we use, the accent that we use, expressions that we use, express that identity. But also, if we are going to support the the variety that is labeled as the standard one, or if we are going to accept the other varieties as the ones that have also a value as all the other varieties. Here we had in the reading that in order to have a standard language, there is a process. So, for example, we learn usually the standard English that is presented in the books, in the dictionaries, in the news, in the programs. But we already studied that there are different varieties also in the same country, in USA, as well as in Colombia. But we learn the standard one, the one that is taught in the books. And varieties and dialects are related to some factors. Do you guys remember those factors? Luis?
I remember one part from the book that if an example, the word is, I don't remember, it's like rice, and it means that in a place, it means that you live in a homely place, and if you go to another place and you mention the same word, it's like you are living in a red zone. So, but it's in Germany, they mentioned the example, and in different places you use words that the meaning is different than in other. So, like buceta in Colombia is different than buceta in Brazil. I don't want to say what is in Brazil, but in Colombia, it's a car. In Brazil, is totally different, and it's a dangerous word to use in the street.
Okay, so one factor is social classes. If that is, I associated what you mentioned with that. So we identify people that belong to different social classes because we have classified words that are spoken with those communities, with communities of people who live in certain parts of a city or in certain parts of the country. And in Colombia, those classes are very we have different, very different socioeconomical differences, and that are in our country, those social differences um, are really, let's say, what is the word? Um, Recognized by everybody. So we know that we have middle class, low class, and high class, and that doesn't happen in other countries. But here we have those differences, and everybody knows that. So when we talk about dialects, we can have those social dialects and varieties that are divided in social classes. That is one factor, but also ethnias. So
Ethnic and geography also.
exactly. So according to the region, we have different ethnias. So indigenous communities have some words of speaking. People from the coast, Afro-American people have different words of speaking, accent and words, and also expressions and different structure when they speak, the Afro-American people. And the other one is religion. That's the other factor.
In India, no?
So even in here in our country, if people mention or don't mention some words when they speak, we can identify them as part of a religion, right? As part of a person who is a believer or not, or that belongs to a certain religious community. So those are like the factors that are related to social identity, social dialects, and that with words we can identify people as belonging to one or the other. Well, and I think that's all what we read in the chapter 2. I don't know if you have questions or you want to mention something else.
No, teacher. Tonight we have a very interesting topic. Thank you. It was great because we realized that we can find different accent, dialect, uh, and maybe if you are here, for example, you Spanish here in Bogota, maybe you have different accent in the Caribbean coast and different way of speaking. If you go to the Caribbean coast, they use some word that you don't understand until you live in that place. It's the same in the United States or maybe in British or in another foreign country. So you need to learn vocabulary because it's important, because when you have a conversation with the foreign people, sometimes they are going to address you in English with different accent and different specific word. Uh, is you know that word, you are going to understand what they mean, but not, it's going to be very complicated at the moment. That is a question of patience to studying hard. Maybe when you feel confident with your English, what you need to do is practice all the time, because practice makes perfect.
Exactly. Or if you use some, you need to also teach your students that if you use some words, you are going to be identified as a person who speak American English or British English, or that you are more connected with one or the other culture. If you travel to USA and you then speak with a British person, he's going to tell you that you are speaking American. And so you are going to be identified somebody who have certain connection with that culture.
Exactly.
Good. So, well, I think it's time to finish the encounter. I don't know, if you have any question, please email me.
Teacher, sorry.
Liliana? Liliana?
Teacher, please, can you share this PowerPoint presentation with us?
Yes, I can upload it. Can upload it to,
Please?
okay. Can upload it to the
Oh,
virtual room.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
okay,
okay. Thank you, teacher.
I also wanted to tell you that you can find the feedback of the first task in the link of the forum. In the link of the forum. Okay. The feedback of the first task. Good. So that's all.
Okay, teacher.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
teacher.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Christian.
So you, teacher.
Good night.
Sleep
Thank
well.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye,
God bless
everyone.
you.
Right.
Okay,
Christian, you
bye-bye.
want to say something? No. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Christian.
Bye-bye.
Bye, teacher.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
God bless
Goodbye.
you. Bye-bye.